Hello! I have another video project to work on today. It's going to be an explanation of some of the most vitally important free tools that I use on a very regular basis to get just about everything I do done. And today I've actually got a new jersey for the collection from Puerto Rico FC. Got the Puerto Rican flag and this logo. That's a bit of a flashback. Anyway, let's get into it. So we're gonna cut back to the desktop here. And by far, the most useful piece of software I've ever installed on any computer is Launchy. Using Alt-Space, it brings up this little keystroke launcher, and I'm actually going to be using this for this video to run everything else that I'm going to be using. And Launchy is a free and mostly open source tool that is so unbelievably useful. It's also cross-platform and is available on Mac, Windows, and Linux. I've tested it on different versions of Linux and different versions of Windows. This is my favorite keystroke launcher I've ever encountered. And from there, we're actually going to be running everything else, and my main writing tool is called Focuswriter. This is where most of my work actually gets done. I store it in my OneDrive account, so it's automatically synced to all of my different computers around here. This is actually the raw draft of the supporting local soccer project. This little tool gives quite a lot of very useful features, including a lot of freedom on stuff like background colors, fonts, font sizes, what sort of correction to use, even how wide the margins are or the spacing. This lets me get a writing atmosphere, a writing experience that is exactly how I want it, to minimize distractions, and it's completely free. I've used about 4 or 5 different writing specific programs above and beyond stuff like Microsoft Word and word processors. And this is the best. It's at gotcode.org, Focuswriter right here. And it's entirely free, general public license, open source, and it's just been fantastic. I have been incredibly pleased with this program. And by the way, none of the people or software I'm showing is sponsoring this. I don't have subscribers that would lead to getting sponsorship. This is all just my own appreciation and recommendations. Next up is DP4 Font Viewer. And this little tool is so incredibly useful for writing or graphic design. Whenever I need to find a font, I can go through and look at every single font I have installed, even filtering it down to the characters I need. So when I was working on a project with Korean characters, I was able to punch in this Korean Hangul block, which is pronounced as eh, and I can see the fonts that have Korean characters and what they all look like. This even works for stuff like Chinese and Japanese. I've even thrown Thai in there, and it's just fantastic. So let's say if I needed to do a sans serif font, and we'll just throw in some sample text. Now I can just go through and look at all of the sans serif fonts I have, exactly how the text is going to look. And when I'm in the middle of a project and need to just find the right looking typeface for something, this makes life a lot easier. This is also a free tool from fontviewer.de. It's just excellent. Entirely freeware. The scaling works even on my Surface Pro, which is a very high DPI display. And the comparison tools, if you're a writer or a designer, this is something you will find very, very useful. Moving on to how I do podcasts. And for podcasts, it's Audacity. Nothing is better than Audacity at doing what Audacity does. There are other free tools out there that are also pretty good, but I've never found a better program or an easier to get comfortable with program than Audacity. And once you're familiar with some of the finer details, it's something you can't live without. For these actual videos, I record everything with OBS Studio, and hey, I'll actually bring over my OBS Studio window and create a little recursive effect. And I edit everything in DaVinci Resolve 15. I know in my original video I said I was looking at Shotcut or OpenShot. They're not as good. DaVinci Resolve gives Premiere Pro a run for its money, and it is free. This DaVinci Resolve 15 beta is what I've been using for video editing, and I am blown away with how just incredible this program is. Moving to some of the graphic stuff, a lot of what I use to control my Inkscape things, I actually have a couple of different mouse macro tools, where I have this one here. It's called X Button Mouse Control. This is a free utility. Then I'm also running for my G.Skill gaming mouse. I have a macro profile set up, or at least I did at one point, for Inkscape. Looks like I've actually switched over to just using this. So this is what runs all of the quick macros I use, mainly importing a graphic, Control-I, and then centering a graphic. And we'll fire up Inkscape, and I'll show how these all work, as well as my little macro pad here. Inkscape is my graphics tool of choice. I know there are some better vector options out there, but I'm not giving Adobe any money. And let's just pull up a random file. We don't need one of those. Let's grab a flag. Those are always good. The flags I'm working on with my new logo. So I have this SVG file with a bunch of stuff in it. If I need to import something, I can just hit right click and automatically import, because I find that the right click menu in Inkscape is fundamentally unnecessary. The color picker tool and the cursor tool are the two most commonly used tools for me, since Inkscape is mainly shapes and colors. So if I make this square here, I can now just press one button on my mouse to switch it to Inkscape mode. And now when I press these two buttons under my thumb, you'll see the cursor switch between the color picker tool and the cursor tool. This right click is my import, and this for my ring finger is the alignment, and this is actually a mode switch if I need the right click back. So I can just go easily change the color of this, and then I have my wonderful Inkscape macro pad. This is a Sweet 16 keypad from OneUp Keyboards. It comes as a solder it yourself kit. So this is all soldered and programmed by me with the help of a couple of tools. I actually see my soldering iron over my shoulder. It's that blue and yellow thing right over there. So this takes all of the major buttons from Align and Distribute. These 10 here, I don't use these too much, and puts them in a very convenient pad. So I'm going to just set this to white, and we're going to move it around relative to this object. So if I need to center it, I can just hit my center keys. If I need to put it on the top corner like that, or maybe I want to just align it to the top, I can just move it around as needed. This little keypad is massively useful for keeping my cursor where I want it while I'm working, so I can just rapidly do the object manipulation in Inkscape. And from there, that's really it. These are the things that I cannot live without. I've got these programs open pretty much all the time, and highly recommend all of them. They're very good. Inkscape has a few quirks. Launchy hasn't been updated in a while, but they work so well, and I haven't found any good alternatives that are definitively better that make me would want to use them over this. So I guess that's all for today, and thank you for watching.